The Dream Old Wishing Well by Leonard. Read by Naya. I'm an old man living in New Hampshire, and I hired a young man to stack my firewood for me. But I never hired him to fall asleep while doing it. I ordered 2 cords of wood, which were dropped off on the side of my lawn a few meters away from my garage and an out-of-order well. The firewood formed a mountain of its own, half the size of the garage. The rack on which I usually stack my firewood was on the other side of the garage and against the house. A few stragglers were on it when Viggo, a kid from the neighborhood, maybe 17 or 18, I don't know, wandered onto the yard. I saw something in him that day. It was underneath an unshakable goofiness about him, a kind of loyalty. "Good morning, Mr. Losefast," he waved to me. His voice was a mutter because he had a piece of straw in his mouth. "Hey, kid," I grunted, giving my best Clint Eastwood squint. "You looking for work?" Yeah." He stopped. A bit of shame came over him, but not enough to erode that curse of goofiness of his. "I got fired from White Lake Pizza." I had already known this. I nodded. "I see. I'm sorry, Squirt. What did you do wrong exactly?" "I kept making all the wrong pizzas, getting the toppings wrong." Yes, I knew this. I had gotten too many olive pizzas when I should have gotten peppers and onions. I hate black olives. I was the one who called and complained after all. But I gave Viggo here a surprised face like I just tasted something really sour. "Well, that's not hard," I insisted, but it seemed to have beaten the kid up. I darted my eyes to the mound of wood, then back to him. "You up for something a little easier than making pizzas?" "Yeah, sure." "I'll give you $40 every morning you come here to stack my firewood." I pointed at the mound. "It's easy, like a puzzle. See how I already started stacking it over there by my yard?" He looked, and I went on explaining. "All you have to do is load a couple pieces of wood in a wagon, wheel it over there, and stack it like I've been stacking it. You got that?" "I do, Mr. Losefast." "Come here around, say, 9:30 tomorrow. Work until 11 or so, and I'll give you $40. "Hey, wow, Mr. Losefast, that sounds like a deal. Can I count on you being here tomorrow?" "At 9:30? "At 9:30, I repeated with an agreeing nod. I watched him walk away with a new bounce in his step. Tomorrow came, and so did Viggo. He was right on time. I gave him water, walked him around the yard, showed him what to do and how to do it, and went inside towards the golf. I settled down in my recliner, saw the time, and saw that I had a good 90 minutes or so to relax. About 40 minutes later or so, I got up to go pee, and on my way out of the bathroom, I looked out of the window and saw that the young man was slumped up against the out-of-order well, fast asleep. A little log of wood was against him like a teddy bear. I shuffled outside, shuffling as fast as an old man could, and stopped above him. I figured I'd let him sleep and wait for maybe a bear or something to come and sniff his face to wake him up. I stood over him with my hands on my hips, but I wasn't going to be sniffing his face. Viggo sprang awake. He got to his feet, slapping the ball of his palm to his forehead, exasperating as if he was just resurrected. "I've never seen a woman like her." "Who?" "The woman on this wishing well," he answered me. He made it sound as if I should have seen her too. "What woman of the wishing well?" I grumped. I looked around and grumped again. "I wish my wood was stacked." She was right here," Viggo explained, looking side to side while catching his breath. "She was sitting on the edge of the wishing well, running her hand through her hands, uh, wringing it. Ah, jeez. He continued, swiveling his head around, almost pirouetting to look behind himself. I swear she was just right here. While you were fast asleep, I noted. I watched the realization sink in on him. It gave him a nasty itch on the back of his neck, top of his spine, where maybe the final remnants of a chill resided. He swiveled around less and scratched the back of his neck. Now only his eyes darted around. You were dreaming, I scolded. This wasn't no dream, Mr. Losefast. I raised my brow, putting my hands on the waistband of my dungarees again. Ah, it wasn't now. Or at least it didn't feel like it, I swear. He stepped to the wishing well and slapped on the edge of it. She was sitting right here, right on top of here. That's a hell of an excuse. No, Mr. Losefast, I'm serious, bro. Me too, bro, I gruffed. A disappointedness came over his face, one that he didn't seem too keen on displaying. He looked down at the edge of the wishing well as if there was something missing from it, like a flower pot or something, or whatever woman was in his dream. Yeah, I was young once too. I walked away, moseying back into the cabin, hoping I didn't miss Roy Mulcroy teeing off. And I did end up missing the tee off because of the damn kid. About 20 minutes later, I got up, got some juice, and went to the window to see Viggo loading up a wagon with firewood. One piece left beside the well like an abandoned teddy bear. He could dream when he was home. Because he had slept for a good amount of the time, he had to come back tomorrow to do some more work, which he seemed to be fine with, but I was admittedly annoyed and worried that he would fall asleep again. I was inside trying to organize my team for the summer golf tournament while he worked, or while I hoped he worked. When I went to go pee and passed the window, I noticed he had fallen asleep again. He was collapsed against the well like an exhausted oracle with no more prophecies to give. By now he was more of a garden decoration than someone I'd hired. I shuffled outside and stood over him just as I had the other day. "Excuse me, Sleeping Beauty," I said, putting my hands on my hips. His eyelids fluttered open. "Where'd she go?" he asked, coming to. He looked around. I didn't have time to ask. He got up and turned to investigate the well. "She was even more clearer today, Mr. Losefast. I was sitting right here." He pointed to the ground at the well. "And she was sitting on the well again, wringing her hair. Her eyes were closed. She looked as though she was singing or humming to herself. But I didn't hear anything. Her hair was green like seaweed or something, like kelp." I just stared at him. "Did you get bit by a tick or something?" I asked, but he didn't answer. He just leaned over and looked into the well, probably only seeing rotten pine cones and cobwebs down there. He gave the well his voice, and the well gave it back to him in an echo that the splinters hated. "She was beautiful, Mr. Losefast." I'd never heard my name echoed like that. It transported me back to the 50s. I was in high school again, at the dinner after school, listening to a buddy pine about a girl in class. "She's beautiful, Johnny." And suddenly, I was this kid's friend. I had nothing else to do but sigh and step forward and look into the well with him. I was right. There was no woman with green hair down there, just pine cones and cobwebs, the stuff of dreams. "I think you dreamt again, buddy," I suggested. I turned my head to look at him looking down into the well, the movement making me feel the gears in my neck click and rotate. "You ever have a girlfriend?" I asked. "I can't even remember now." Viggo shook his head ever so slightly. He spoke as if he had a piece of straw in his mouth, even though he didn't. I guess he was chewing on astonishment, and that's a hell of a flavor of bubble gum. I looked down and considered. Once was normal, but having the same dream twice in the same exact spot, now that was abnormal. So I looked into the well with him a little longer. "She smelled like the pond, Mr. Losefast. She smelled just like the spot where the leeches are." I knew the smell he was talking about. Not a nasty smell, but one of nature's distinct musks that can make you think of something relating to it. His comment about this made me think of lily pads and the flowers that sometimes grow on them, not leeches. It made me think of the gritty smell of wet sand in summer, green hair and the pond smell. What kind of dream lover was this? What kind of dream lover is this? I asked. Viggo shook his head. "Oh, I'd be lucky if I knew she loved me. I could watch her wring her hair forever." His fascination was contagious, and we peered down into the well a little further. "Hey!" I remembered. "Stack my wood." "Yes, Mr. Losefast." And I walked back inside. When I first heard the sound, I thought Viggo had climbed the mound of wood, and one wrong step he made had caused the mound to collapse and send him down in an avalanche of wood. It made me spring up from my seat at the kitchen table, my pencil twittering down on the table by the tournament paper. I grunted a curse word and hurried outside, but the mound of wood was untouched. Viggo was gone. I examined the scene for a minute, wondering what could have made such a commotion, and I shuffled over to the mound of wood to investigate. It was 11:40-something, and there was still plenty of wood to be stacked, and no Viggo in sight. "Mr. Losefast! Help!" It was an echo. I looked up at the sky, at the surrounding pine trees, as if a bird had called out to me. I admit my face must have looked like I tasted another sour lemon, except this time it was so sour that I basked my mouth open, as if the air would get the sour surprise out. "Mr. Losefast!" I turned to the well. I stopped in a moment of sheer disbelief, not answering him. I waited for another cry, but none came, so I shuffled over to the well, where surely enough he was. "I fell in," Viggo called out when I poked my head above the pit of the well. He was standing down below. "How the hell did that happen?" I asked. "I don't know. She was sitting there again, and I just had to try and hug her, and I fell in." Viggo shrugged, as if the same thing could have happened to any other man. "Were you dreaming again?" I asked. "Were you sleepwalking?" Viggo circled in place as if looking for a door that wasn't there. He stopped and shrugged again. I don't know," he said. I believed him. "I think I was awake," he said. "I saw her, though. I swear I saw her, wringing her hair on the wall of the well." "All right, kid. Let me figure out how to get you out of there," I said before backing away. I eyed the garden hose. "Do you know how to tie a good knot?" I shouted while dragging the garden hose over to the well. "Yeah," he replied, although part of me didn't believe him. I didn't really see what other option he had anyway, so I started lowering the hose by the nozzle and first down into the well. "Wrap and tie that around your waist," I called down. I watched him struggle to do so, but eventually he seemed to get an all right knot around his waist. "All right, ready!" he called up. I took a good look at the young man, giving me 2 thumbs up down there before I moseyed over to the rack that held the hose and started winding it up, or trying to wind it up at least. "Hold tight!" I shouted after my first try of winding up the hose did nothing at all. I got down on one knee, gritted my teeth, and tried to crank the hose back again. I gave it all my might, and it gave. The crank turned, and I heard Viggo give an excited shout. I winded the crank another time, straining the muscles in my shoulder. I grunted, gritting teeth. I cranked it again. "I'm coming up, Mr. Losefast! I'm coming up!" I lost my grip and the crank gave loose in a tornado of its own. The hose whizzed past me, being swallowed by the well and taking the rack with it. The rack crashed against the well and clumped down. Viggo groaned. Only in the aftermath had I realized that the runaway rack nearly took my head off. "Damn it, kid!" I stood up, slapping my thighs. "No woman of the wishing well's coming to save you now!" I turned, turning my anger to the mound of wood. "Look at all my wood!" "I'm sorry, Mr. Losefast," his voice came up. I put my hands on my hips, surveying the scene of the disaster and the hose rack that was now against the well. "Oh, well, it's all right," I told myself. "We're gonna figure out a way to get you out of there." "Thank you, Mr. Losefast." The rescue was not as exciting as it almost was. I ended up getting a little ladder and handing it down to him, and he got out that way. He climbed out in a tattered ghillie suit of cobwebs and pine needles. It was in his hair, on his sweaty arms, and all over his shirt. I almost wanted to smack him when he came out. The next day, the third day granted, I force-fed Viggo 2 cups of black coffee when he came at 9:30. Well, he got the wood stacked, but he spent 30 minutes in the bathroom afterwards. I wasn't going to check to see if he'd fallen asleep in there, so while he was blowing up my bathroom, an idea came over me, an idea that I was impressed with myself for coming up with. I moseyed outside and sat down beside the hose rack that was crash-landed against the well. I slumped against the wall, although it was a little bit too splintery for me, and I closed my eyes. I let the sound of singing bugs lull me off to sleep, the sunlight making the area like it was nap time in a grandpa daycare center. It was actually quite relaxing. I woke up in the town nurse's office. Our town is too small for a hospital. "Mr. Losefast! Mr. Losefast!" The nurse caterwauled my name until my senses returned, and I realized it wasn't a caterwaul but a polite calling. She was calling me out from the well of sleep. The white walls and white lights of the nurse's office made their space-age impact on me as I came to. "What do I do now?" I croaked. "You fell asleep, you big goof." The nurse couldn't help but smile. I blinked and saw that Viggo was standing dumbly behind the nurse. She pointed him out, explaining, "This young man knew what to do." "Oh, that's a shock," I said. She continued explaining. "He couldn't wake you up, so he called us. We came, picked you up, then we saw the well. And you know what we found in the well?" I waited for her to answer herself. There was a brief horror in me that was waiting for her to say they found the woman of the well. "A kind of toxic mold," she said. "It's growing all up and down the walls inside the well. You were just close enough for that stuff to knock you out. And I hear your friend here's also been affected by that stuff." My eyes fluttered at Viggo. I nodded a little amazed, so I started, Yes, that's right." "Don't worry, Mr. Losefast. I already have a guy cleaning it up for you," the nurse told me. "You and your friend will be A-OK." She slapped my shoulder, but it hurt a little from having to wind up the hose the other day. I gave Viggo my attention, and I found we shared the same expression: dumb bewilderment. The woman of the well did not exist. We both knew then that it was just a mold-induced fever dream.